Hi folks, I hope you're enjoying this Christmas season. Tonight we're going to be looking at the three wise men. You know, one of the Christmas carols that you're bound to hear or sing this Christmas recalls the story of three men carried along by the unhurried rhythm of their camel steps. They will forever be known as wise men. We three kings of Orient are, bearing gifts we travel afar, field and fountain, moor and mountain, following yonder star. Imagine the story. An astronomer calls excitedly from his midnight watch. Casper, come quick. Look towards the constellation of the Jews. Casper peers into the blackness. Do you see it? That brilliant star is new tonight. It must signify the birth of a mighty king. Casper peers at the night sky. A soft whistle escapes him. There it is. I've read ancient Hebrew scriptures which tell of this star. Rising, he says, we must go see him. We must go. Traveling the caravan routes of Persia, Babylon, and Syria for 1,200 miles, they ford broad rivers, pass ancient cities, cross barren deserts. For months they trek westward, day after day. In Jerusalem they inquire, where is he that is born King of the Jews? We have seen his star in the east and have come to worship him. Worship him? So the baby is more than a king. Now they follow the shining star till it rests over a simple Jewish home. You can imagine how at early dawn neighbors gather to watch the richly robed travelers quietly make their way through the darkened streets until they reach the carpenter's home. The camels grunt softly as they kneel to let their riders dismount. Joseph meets them at the door. We've come to see the child, the king. The wise men fall before the baby, faces to the floor, royal counselors doing homage, worshipping. Outside, their servants unload heavy chests from the camels and set gifts before the king. Heavy, heady fragrances of frankincense and myrrh mingle to fill the room as one by one the boxes are opened. A touch of the child's tiny fingers, a final look, and the men respectfully rise, take their leave, and just as quietly as they arrived, they go, their camel bells gently tinkling until they fade in the brisk morning air. Well, that wasn't adapted from the Bible. That was adapted from Christmas Travelers by Dr. Ralph F. Wilson. But it speaks to tradition rather than the Bible. So who were these kings of the Orient? Who were these wise men? Wise men is a translation of magi, which is a transliteration of a Greek word magos, meaning wise men or astrologers, magician or sorcerer. This word is a derivative of an old Persian word, majupati. It was a title used for priests. There's some evidence from outside of the Bible that magi were a sacred caste of the Medes. It was their task to provide priests for Persia dating back hundreds of years. Now, their influence had seriously declined over the centuries, but it is still possible, maybe even probable, that some still existed in this same role at the time of Jesus' birth. So there were probably astronomers from Persia. In addition to being skilled in science of the heavens and stars, they were also learned in philosophy, natural science, and medicine. It was part of their religion to pay special attention to the stars and prophesy, and they had quite a reputation for astrology, which was at that time considered a prestigious science. Now Christians see it as potentially demonic and certainly to be avoided. The sudden appearance of a new and brilliant star suggested to the Magi that an important person had been born, and they set out to find and worship him. So the biblical order of events is this. Jesus was born, angels appeared to the shepherds, and the shepherds visit. Their sign was the manger, not the star. 8 days later, Jesus is circumcised. 6 weeks later, Jesus is consecrated in the temple. Joseph, Mary, and Jesus go back to Bethlehem and live in a house. Then the Magi arrived, sometime between 6 months and 2 years after Jesus was born. Herod had wanted to know when the baby was born, so he inquired exactly when the star appeared. From the information he learned from the wise men, he ordered the killing of all baby boys up to 2 years old. Let's see what the Bible actually does say in Matthew 2, 1-12. After Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of King Herod, wise men from the east arrived unexpectedly in Jerusalem, saying, "Where is he who is born King of the Jews? For we saw his star in the east and have come to worship him." When King Herod heard this, he was deeply disturbed, and all Jerusalem with him. So he assembled all of the chief priests and scribes of the people and asked them where the Messiah would be born. "In Bethlehem of Judea," they told him, "because this is what was written by the prophet. And you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the leaders of Judah, because out of you will become a leader who will shepherd my people Israel." Then Herod secretly summoned the wise men and asked them the exact time the star appeared. He sent them to Bethlehem and said, "Go and search carefully for the child. When you find him, report back to me so that I too can go and worship him." After hearing the king, they went on their way. And there it was, the star they'd seen in the east. It led them until it came and stopped above the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they were overjoyed beyond measure. Entering the house, they saw the child with Mary his mother, and falling to their knees, they worshipped him. Then they opened their treasures and presented him with gifts, gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And being warned in a dream not to go back to Herod, they returned to their own country by another route. The Magi provide us with a model of the faithful. To call them three kings is overstated. Wise men is a positive spin. These guys are stargazing pagan astrologers, watching for who knows what in the skies rather than in the scripture. And yet, and this is important, God in his grace comes to them through the very channel of their sin. Even here at Jesus' birth, he's making wizards into worshippers. It's important that we don't miss the message of the Magi. The story of the Magi in the New Testament is rooted in Old Testament prophecy that proved that Jesus was the Messiah. Passages in Isaiah, Psalms, Jeremiah, and Ezekiel, for example, predicted that non-Jewish nations of the whole world would come to adore him and would bring him treasures. Sometimes one king was thought to be a black African, one Persian, and one European, probably to teach the equality of the nations and races. Or perhaps they were, but that's more speculative than factual. So look and see, through the traditions and stories, the truth of the gospel. If such sinners as these can approach the Christ and fall down in worship, so may we. Pagan astrologers prostrate in adoration is a stunning emblem announcing that all sinners may come. And Matthew piles up the joy language so that we don't miss it. The King James Version tells us that they didn't just rejoice, but they did so exceedingly with great joy. They had the thrill of completion, the end of their search. They'd found the one for whom they'd been searching for months, possibly even years. It's true that the wise men are somewhat mysterious. There are many things we don't know about them, but we do know this: they were searching diligently for the one who was born King of the Jews. In our search for Jesus, let me suggest three key attitudes that the wise men displayed that we need to have if we are to find the Christ as they did. First, the wise men had an attitude of urgency. They were Gentiles. They may have had the scriptures, but they were just one set of writings amongst many. They didn't hold a special place for them, yet they desired truth. God gave them an invitation in that star. Herod, the chief priests and scribes, sensed their eagerness and their focus and their desire. They came a long way and made personal sacrifice. They weren't just passing through. For the wise men, the journey was not the objective. The objective was to worship the child, and therefore they are an inspiration for us today. And it shows that your life journey is important. Your destination makes a huge difference, an eternal difference, and I really do believe that the evidence in my life is that God has created us to find and worship him. In our search for Jesus, let me suggest three key attitudes that the wise men displayed that we need to have if we are to find the Christ as they did. First, they had an attitude of urgency. Secondly, they were full of joy. And thirdly, they bent the knee to worship. I do have some questions for you. Just to recap, who were the wise men? Secondly, what impresses you most about the Magi? Thirdly, what Christmas activities detract you from having this sense of urgency, joy, and worship? Fourthly, what Christmas activities draw you into a closer sense of urgency, joy, and worship? Fifthly, and lastly, what one thing will you do to enhance these three attitudes towards the Lord? Can you separate them from the Christmas season and develop the attitudes that will take you to Jesus with your life gifts and worship Him? Have a really good Christmas, and God bless you.